And we're live.
We're live, are we? Yep. With the 7th episode
Yep.
of HackCast.
007 HackCast, the 7th episode. We're at our HackCast studio, which is getting better and better. As you can see, we have sound panels behind us, and we have a really nice setup in front of us, which unfortunately you cannot see right now.
Yeah, but we hope that the quality of the HackCast is getting better and better every time. Yep. What are we going to talk about today?
So, episode number 7, the topic is going to be about estimations and efforts in the software development and software management context.
Okay.
Because what usually happens when you develop a software, there are usually two sides. Let's generalize a bit and say that there are two sides. There's the business side, and there's the software development side. Yeah, there are two sides, and the software development side wants to ship the software, have high quality, have test coverage, have a nice abstraction, use better libraries and tools.
Yeah, best practices.
Best practices, yep. While the business side wants it usually as soon as possible, and usually if it's going to take less time, it's better.
Yep.
And if there can be hacks that make the software that will allow the software to be shipped faster, they love the hacks.
Usually they don't really care about test coverage,
Yeah.
about best practices and updating versions of libraries.
Or they can care, but they usually they don't understand it as deep as the software developers, and especially for software developers, it's something very important. You want to have test coverage, you want to have good abstraction, but on the other side, the business side, the product side, they want it shipped, they wanted people using it. Yeah. So with this in mind, let's start digging into estimations. For example, there's a new client coming our way, and this client tells us, this is roughly what I need. Can you tell me, can you estimate it?
Yep. So some clients require estimation of a whole project.
Yep.
Other clients are a little bit smarter, and they decide to split the project into a couple of different release phases. Let's say.
Yeah.
And this makes the whole thing a little bit easier, because you can easier say that this first release is going to be smaller with all the core features, and you can easily estimate it. And if it's something big, like something enormous, it's pretty impossible to estimate it, because you have to have pretty good understanding of how everything is going to work, and even the client doesn't really know how it's going to work. So for a pretty big project, it is kind of impossible, I think, to estimate it. Impossible is a strong word, but
the effort for estimating it is going to be equal to the effort of actually writing the software. I think, because clients usually say, this is my idea, tell me how long it's going to take for you to build it, and also tell me the budget, how much it's going to cost. And usually when you give the client a time frame and a budget, they tend to get angry when things go over this timeline and over this budget. And almost every time in software development, things go over the initial time frame and over the budget. And I think here is the first big gap and misunderstanding between the business and the software, because if the business is not, they don't actually know all the details of the software they want to build. They have a rough idea, but they want to know the specific timeline, deadline to release something, and the specific budget, so they can budget it, so they can put something that's quite static in the spreadsheet, and it adds nicely to the overall budget.
Yep.
But usually, as you said, what's happening is that as you start developing the project, you break it down in releases. You say, all right, let's focus this first month, let's get everything ready, and let's get the initial structure ready, and let's deploy something that's I don't like the term minimal viable product or whatever, but that's minimal but has enough features in order to be clickable and usable by some users.
Yeah, and the devil is always in the details.
Yeah.
So many clients doesn't really know how the details are going to work. They don't
Yeah.
really care about it because it's initial phase of the project,
Yeah.
and this could add significant amount of time in the estimation, depending on the details.
Yeah. So on the current project that you and your team that are currently working, you're doing just this. You're doing releases.
Yeah. So we are trying to do monthly releases
Right.
on new couples of features. Of course, hotfixes get released immediately. But this is but we are trying to think month for month. We are not trying to think, okay, so this year we are going to release this feature. Let's sit down and write it.
Yeah.
We are like taking it apart and shipping it in small pieces.
Yeah.
So let's say this month we are going to ship this little thing, even though it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be full feature, but it is going to be something that is going to get tested by the end users, and we are going to receive feedback, and this creates a little bit more agile and flexible process.
Yeah, I think this is like the actual agile process. It's shipping smaller units of code in a shorter time frame. Because if you say, all right, let's code for 3 months blindly without any feedback, then you're going to end up with something that's either not usable or not what the client wants or the end user wants. And unless you're doing a clone of something that you know how it's working, I guess then you can give some actual real estimate of time and budget. Or if you're doing something for the nth time, that's a clone of something else that you did before. But otherwise, for software projects that are new, the thing that we usually do is we say it looks like it's going to take 6 months, and the budget, the thing that we do is we bill daily. So it looks like the team for this project should be around 2 or 3 people. And this makes the budget based on the daily rates between a range. And then you say, but it may turn out that this project is a year long, or it may turn out that this project can be done in a month, because we don't know yet. We don't know all the details. You don't know all the details. And the best thing we can do is to start, be flexible, work week for week or month for month, and see where everything is going to go, clear the details around the requirements, clear the details around the product, and actually ship something.
And it's kind of important to say this is an estimation. So it all depends on the process. It all depends on the details that we are going to clear out in the process. And it may take like two or 3 times longer. It is normal. So we are going to figure out a good process, and we are going to figure out what is important for the core product and what can be done later, after the initial or the third or the second release.
And usually there are trade-offs, because sometimes there are clients that say we need this in 2 months. We have a hard, strict deadline. We want to do it. We're willing to, for example, pay more, but we need it in 2 months. And for something that looks like it's going to take 6 months, this means that there are going to be corners cut. This means that there are going to be like a lot of bugs, some known, some hidden, on production. And this means that the quality is not going to be that high, because everyone's rushing and everyone wants to get something to production. And this means if the project is successful, then after the initial 2 months, there should be time to either re-implement everything, if it's small enough, or refactor it nicely so it can grow and it can contain new features.
So this is one of the most difficult sales for me that I've ever made, to sell a product owner, a non-technical guy, the idea that we have to spend the next, for example, 2 months or 2 weeks or a big period of time refactoring and rewriting the code that's already there and it's already working. So normally when you release, there are a whole bunch of new features that you want to add, a whole bunch of bug fixes and small things that you want to improve, and there are a whole bunch of tech debt. That is all the things that you have to go back and rewrite them, improve them, and of course fix them. And it is really hard to explain to someone that is non-technical that you have to waste, although it's not a waste, for example, a big period of time to re-implement, to refactor, and improve the overall quality of the code. So how do you do this? How do you sell the idea of we have to spend time refactoring?
This is really, really hard, because sometimes you can sell the idea to the product guy or girl that you're working with, but they won't be able to sell it to the business that they're working for.
Yeah.
So then you have a conflict, and then you have a nasty software project, and we've seen a lot of this. But the thing that I think the best approach here, or one of the better approaches, is to outline why there's a need for this, because we were rushing. We make those decisions, they are documented, they are in the tech debt backlog. We know that those decisions are going to cause problems in the future, and if we don't take the time now to do them when things are, going on smooth, we'll have to fix them on the go when things start to break. Okay. And if things start to break when there is a big usage, this is like the worst case scenario, because you can go offline, your service may crash. Yeah. And when you paint this picture to them, they start to understand. Yeah. Because product owners, managers, and business, they fear downtime. When you say this is going to crash, users won't be able to use it. There are going to be bugs, there are going to be data inconsistencies, which means that things can spiral out of control. And we can prevent this, or most of this, by spending the next week or two, or spending the next day or two, because sometimes the refactoring is small and can be done in a day or two. And actually allocating work for refactoring. I think this is really important, because the way we work, we usually communicate in both of our right now teams. The way we work is that we do the project management. Yeah. We speak with either directly to the business, the CEOs, or we speak directly to the product owners that make the product decision, and talk with the people using the product. And they tell us the features, they tell us what the changes, and we manage the software development process. Meaning we create the cards, we sync the cards with them, we discuss the cards with them, but if there's a need to refactor, we do the refactor. Yeah. And it's like, it's a responsibility that we take, and it's actually quite an important responsibility, because we want to also push the product further and ship new features, but also keep the quality high and refactor. So on our end, it's more easy because we do this. We do this in our work. There is always refactoring going on in different parts of the system, and especially in the project that I'm working on, there were times where we did like a week-long refactoring, but it was needed. It was needed to carry on with the new feature set. Otherwise, it was going to be a lot of hacks stitched together, waiting to crumble under production load.
Okay, yeah. I think one of the key techniques here is to explain this to them using their word, using their language. So they don't really understand terms like crappy code, so what is spaghetti code, what is tech debt, what is legacy, The approach I take is pretty simple. I explain to them that, for example, we want to refactor this feature because you guys are going to want to add a couple of more features related to this feature. And if we don't refactor first, these features are going to take, for example, 4 times more.
Longer.
Longer. It's going to take 4 times longer to be implemented. Or we can invest some time in rewriting it now, and then all the new features that they are going to require are going to be like way easier and way faster to get implemented.
So it's like future benefits. Yeah. This is like working out and eating healthy. It won't have the benefit right now, but it's a compound future effect, future benefit.
Long term, it's going to get way cheaper for you if we do the refactoring now than if we do the refactoring later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can see this in our project because we were having like quite a lot of refactoring going on. For example, 3 to 6 months ago, and right now we're like shipping features like crazy. It's like every week we ship 1 or 2 new features. Going directly to they're being tested and going directly in production, being used by the end users, and the cleaner code base helps a lot because if you have cleaner code base, you have internal rules in your project, how you write this. You have a nice internal abstraction, and you have easier way of reviewing the code because when you look at a piece of code, it should look like the rest of the project.
Yep.
And if there's something that does not look like the rest of the project, there should be a good reason for it to exist. So refactoring helps a lot, and it actually is one of the key features to have long-term projects that are being used on production every day. Because if you don't have production, you can break the project and no one will care. But when you have to do backwards compatible refactoring or feature changes, it's really, really important.
And there's one more thing. Developers actually enjoy working in clean code, in code that follows best practices. If you keep your code messy for a long period of time, you risk losing your developers. And once your core people go away, you're pretty much screwed up. So this is one of the important things too. You have to refactor and keep the code clean and easy to maintain, easy to use, and that keeps the developers happy. One of the things that keeps the developers happy, of course, it is kind of important. So no one enjoys working in messy and crappy code.
And
no one is happy dealing with legacy. With old versions of libraries, old versions of languages.
Well, sometimes you have to deal with legacy, but you need to know that there is a horizon, there's refactoring coming, there's improvement coming, that there's the mindset that this thing is going to be changed and is going to be fixed and is going to be improved in the future. And it's going to happen, not just promises. I think this is the really important thing, because sometimes some refactorings are not that big of a priority, and programmers can really waste a lot of time refactoring. So you have to find the balance. Yes, I think that's why business hates the word refactoring. They're like, oh, you're going to spend a week that I'm going to pay for, and by the end of this week there's going to be no new added value or features. It's just going to be the same, with the great possibility of something that's been working so far breaking. Because sometimes you can break things while refactoring, even if you have test coverage. I guess estimates. We started from estimates for
I guess we can make another HackCast for refactoring.
Just for refactoring,
the different ways of doing it. It is something to be estimated and something to be kept in the overall project plan. It has something to do with estimating. But let's get back to the estimations.
Let's get back to the estimations.
And see what, for example, are the key points for creating good estimations of smaller tasks.
So basically, when you're handed a project description or something, a rough idea, or a website, I want something like this. This is one of the ways that clients do. I want this website.
It is a simple website like Facebook, nothing really complicated.
You have to first understand, I guess, the intent of the client. How big do they imagine it? What features do they need? Do they need all the features? You have to talk with the client in order to, because clients, as they usually don't understand the software development process as deep as we do, because we do this every day, they tend to underestimate how much a feature is going to take. So let's add something that's being supported for, like, you can send and edit a single document to a user. Let's add sending and editing multiple documents between multiple users. We have this we have this in place. It works for a single user, but we never talked about multiple users. So why should it take a month? They tend to underestimate features, and they want a lot of features. For a client, if they can have an additional feature, it's good.
Everything is a core feature.
Everything's a core feature.
We cannot drop anything.
Yeah.
Because everything is important.
Yeah.
But some things are more important than other.
Yeah.
And our work, I think, is to find what are the most important features and to start with them. Yeah. What are the features that are not going to change for sure in the next couple of months, for example, and start with them because they are the basics for the project. Yeah. And once you have implemented them, it has to be really clear that these features are not changing a lot because these are the fundamentals of the system. And if we change them, we have to change everything.
Yeah, we have to change the system.
Yeah.
And sometimes this happens, but I think you got this right. So, for example, you talk with a client and you end up with a list of 10 features. And then you ask, tell me the core features that this product cannot do without for the first initial launch.
Yep.
And you receive a list of the same 10 features. Because everything's a core feature for the clients. And you cannot blame them. They want a product and they're going to pay for it. So the next thing that we usually do is to prioritize the features. Yeah. It's like, from those 10 features, give me the top 5. Give me first the most important one, then the second most important one, and end up with a list of 5. And then iterate on this list of 5. Do you really want this? Is this going to change? Is this something that feature number 5 was it like initially thought, or you just happened to think about it today right before the call?
Yeah.
And do you know the details about it? So do you have the details? Because when clients give you features and they don't have the details in mind, when you start developing them and you start asking questions like how is this going to work? How is this going to fit with the rest of the system? Yeah. Sometimes they don't know.
Yeah. And they decide to drop them.
Or they say, just figure something out.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is if they drop them, it's the best. Because if you have a smaller set of core features, you're going to ship the software faster. But when they say figure something out, then you figure something out. And sometimes this is good because clients say, all right, thank you for the suggestions. I think this is good enough. And sometimes they're like using the system for a year and are like, this should not work like this.
Yeah.
We were not this should be changed. But cutting down features and prioritizing features is like before we start software development or in the very first weeks of software development, this is like our most important job. And this is the job of the project manager / team lead that we have for each team because clients tend to underestimate and tend to add a lot of features. They love a lot of features and they think that each feature is going to take a day. Which in the beginning is not true.
So what is your approach of explaining non-technical people how complex is something?
How complex is something, I tend to describe them the steps that we're going to need to take and give a rough
estimations about each step.
Estimate how long each step is going to take. And when you add up for something that sounds really let's do this. When it turns out it's going to be something like 2 weeks or more, they start thinking about it because when you have a team of 3 and one person is going to work on this for the next 2 weeks, and you want to move fast, and they start to question: is this really important? Yeah. If it's not important, let's drop it. Let's do the important thing first. So new projects, for me the most tricky part is to cut down the features a lot. To end up with something that's workable, to ship something, like if we can ship something to production, the first week is great, the second week is great, the first month is great. As soon as possible, something to production, even to a smaller group of end users, or just the client testing it. Yeah. But the quicker we go to production and the quicker we start iterating on this, the better, because incremental changes are the key to software development, and not like let's build this and throw away it. If you start with this in mind, it's okay. Yeah, let's just build something for a month. This is how it should roughly work, and we're going to throw it away. We can do this. It's usually not working very well because you can test. There are smarter ways to test.
Yeah. But on the other hand, you have the idea of if you start with something small and you decide to create more features on top of it, often you have to change the data structure.
Yeah.
That is related with some kind of data migration.
Yeah.
And is creating some problems. For example, this new field is going to be required for everyone, but you don't have the data, so you have to figure out the way to populate this data. And it can get pretty complex to add these new features because you already have some data and you have to keep it, you don't want to lose it. And some people say that if we're going to do this feature, let's do them now. It's going to be better because we are going to have to keep them in mind while developing the whole system. Other than let's release something and then we're going to need an enormous amount of time to change the system to adopt these new features. So it's always a balance. It's always you have to think about these two.
There's a sweet spot because if you deploy the very first commit that you do, you're going to end up with, and you have data in production, you're going to end up with making migrations and data migrations on each deploy, which eventually is going to happen. But since it's an expensive or not that trivial process, it's better to postpone it. I think so. There is a sweet spot. But perhaps to summarize, when we have to do an estimate on a new project, we tend to first talk with the clients, give a really rough estimate of a time frame and team size, and give them the daily rate so they can calculate the budget for themselves. But we say that there's a big disclaimer, which means it can take less, it can take more. We work and build daily and invoice monthly. And if this project is going to be successful, we're going to give our best as software developers and our best as project managers to ask the right questions, cut the features, make sure everything's going as quick as possible without ruining the quality or without having too much tech debt. But then if the business does not know what they need or what product they're building, in the end it's not going to work. So the business and the product owners, they have also a great part in this, and they should not delegate all of their responsibilities to the software development team, because this is what usually happens in big companies. And if you have a really strong product guys and girls, and a really strong software development team, then you can ship really fast.
That's a great summary. So what about estimating smaller tasks? The thing that we do on daily basis?
In a running project.
In a running project. So for example, we're starting a new sprint and we have 5, 10, 20 new little or bigger, of course, features, tasks to estimate. How do you do this in your team?
Well, if I have to be honest, I hate estimating because the effort that it takes me to estimate something, it's usually comparable to the effort of doing it. Especially for smaller tasks. If you have the right structure in mind and the task is described properly, then there's no need to estimate. So the estimate can come when you start working on a task. In the first few hours, you're going to see, this is like touching a lot of parts of the system, and it's going to perhaps introduce some breaking changes. So let's stop and discuss. So instead of estimating, trying to simulate this work process of doing an hour or two for this task, and trying to think where it's going to break. Sometimes it's better to just start fiddle with it and see if it's going to be like a really quick thing or it's going to take some more time. Of course, there are tasks that are clear to you that they're going to take time because you know the system, you know the data structures, the data model, and you've written this particular part of the system, and you know that this task is going to require some moving around, and then you can say, all right, this task is going to require some moving around before you start the task. But for me, estimating on daily tasks is a waste. It's like a really big waste. We should just pull the task and do our best to finish it For me, a good task that adds something to an existing feature or changes it slightly is a day work or less.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, you should be able to push to production or to somewhere to be tested. For a new feature that's well described, again, let's say well described, because when it's not well described, you go in the process of talking with them and realizing what needs to be done. It should take like a week. Or if it's going to take more, break it down in features that are going to take a week. So by the end of this week, we're going to ship this set of features of this bigger feature, let's say.
Yeah.
And there are, several approaches to this. You can feature switch them. You can feature tag them and don't actually show them to users or show them to a really small amount of users. And when you do this, you're going to ship this thing that's going to take first, let's say, 2 months. You're going to ship it on the first week with something small.
Yeah.
And people may start using it, smaller groups, and it will start breaking earlier and you're going to fix it earlier. So I try to avoid estimations on daily tasks as much as possible. And I try to just get the team to do them. There is a backlog called plans, which are the tasks, and usually we either do the planning on Monday, and when we're ready with the whole thing for the week by Wednesday, we pull more cards on Wednesday, when we're ready for them by Friday. So we try to do this week by week, so we can keep a good tempo and ship a lot of things each week.
Yeah, that makes sense. So personally, I hate estimating cards too. Sometimes it's pretty good. It's a pretty big waste of time. But I've been in situations where it's kind of important, not for the dev team, but it's important for the non-technical product owners to understand how much time you're going to need for this in order to decide if you're going to keep it or if you're going to drop it. And what I do is, in order to do a good estimations, you have to know your team really well. When, for example, I estimate a card, I'm thinking who is going to write this, so I can be more precise in my estimations. And the other thing is you have to have a good understanding of the whole system, how everything works, how everything is implemented, in order your estimations to be real. And what I do is just splitting the new tasks in 2 columns. Easy wins that I think for me is going to be like a couple of hours work, and bigger tasks that are going to require some pretty big changes. I think on how I'm going to implement it, opening the code and saying, okay, I'm going to make a change in this service, going to change the data model. If I change the data model, I need to update these 4 forms, for example, listing all of the things there, estimating them by separately, and then go back to speak with them about the details. Because in almost every case, the first ticket, the first card is not pretty well described. And while non-technical people are writing these cards, they don't keep in mind the whole complexity of the system. So I separate them into 2 columns. Easy wins that we're just going to make in a day or 2. Assigning people to these cards and they're just starting working on them. And bigger things that needs discussion, and I'm personally trying to convince them to drop these features if they are too complex. Of course, if something is important and it's big, we are just describing it better and better and better until we have the full understanding of how it is going to work and what changes it's going to require. And after that, we are just splitting it to the team. And
this makes sense actually. This is pretty smart. So the thing that I do when because there's like every day, how long is going to take or how much effort is this? Those are my favorite questions that I'm being asked every day. Every time when I get asked how much effort is this, I start asking questions. Instead of evaluating the card for it's going to take 3 days, I try to understand the intent and list a lot of questions that are covering either corner cases or specifying something in a greater detail or asking how this is going to fit with the overall system. And when you do this, for example, when you come up early on Monday morning or Tuesday morning if we are doing the planning call with the client on Monday, and you spend like I usually spend an hour on this. It takes that long. Where you list all the questions about all the cars that are kind of planned for this week, and then people start answering. And while answering, they either say, "All right, so this turns out to have quite a lot of questions that I cannot answer, so let's postpone this."
Yeah.
So instead of me giving effort, it's going to take like 5 days because there are quite a lot of uncertainties, and because there are uncertainties, I'm going to increase the time.
Yep.
And after the 5 days, we're not going to have the feature, and we're going to postpone it again, but we're going to have wasted 5 days.
Yeah.
So asking questions for me is like the better approach, because then there are cards. If there are cards where I have no questions, they're done by the day. The same as you said, I think about who's going to take them, and they're usually done at the same day, because if you don't have questions for the card, then it's straightforward, it's going to be done. If you have a lot of questions that are not answered or they don't have answers, it's usually postponed or dropped. And if you have questions and the questions are answered and you have questions for the answers and you do this several times, you end up with a pretty good description of what needs to be done, which means you can break it down and perhaps parallelize it between make someone pair with someone else or form a smaller team in your team and say for this week or for the next several weeks, you two are going to work together on this set of tasks. They're pretty well described. Here's the communication, here's the description, go on. And small pull requests often merges. We don't do like, here's one big PR for the last 3 weeks. We like to merge every day on a feature, so we know that we're moving, we're making progress on the feature, and also it's bearable to do reviews. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what about situations where the client is, for example, a really big company, and they need to have a contract that says, you guys are going to build this system in this amount of time for a fixed budget?
This is like they do this I think they do this to insure themselves.
Yeah.
But it actually it does more harm to them. Because you say, we're going to fix you the budget, we're going to fix you the features usually, and we're going to fix you the time. And when you have all the three fixed, we cannot do our job. We cannot do our job when all the three components are fixed. And they say, all right, they won't lie to us, because the business usually thinks, so those software developers now are going to slack, and since they're billing us on a daily basis, they have interest to work more, so they can bill us more, which sounds reasonable, but and perhaps there are software companies that are doing this, but for us, this is something that we do not do. We love shipping software and building software, and we do not postpone something so we can build more. We work with the optimal rhythm and tempo of the team, of the current context and software. And the thing that the business is doing, as you said, this is the contract, sign it or we're not going to work with you, it does more harm to the business, because by the end of the contract, most probably we're going to cover all the features, we're going to get our money, and it's going to be on time. But the software is not going to be usable.
And we have been in these situations like 2 or 3 times. Nowadays we don't do such contracts, and we don't work on fixed prices for the whole project. And most businesses can't actually realize why this is bad for them. First of all, when you have a contract with all the features listed and described, so if I'm going to sign a contract, I need all the features described really well. And this can take an enormous amount of time to describe your whole system in a piece of paper. And this is not flexible at all. I mean, most clients would like some feature changes
of course,
the first or the second day we start working. And then we're in a situation where we have to make amendments to the contracts for every piece of work, additional, and it's getting not really flexible, like a lot. The second thing is then when we estimate the project, we say, okay, this project is going to take, for example, 4 months, let's say a bigger period, 6 months. So we need to put an additional amount of buffer in time and money in order to be sure that if something went wrong, we will have the time to fix it, and we're not going to pay, for example, additional taxes, or we're not going to break the contract. So this overall comes more expensive to the client, and it's not flexible at all, and the clients do need this flexibility. It is important to them. So this doesn't really work for us anymore. There are companies working that way. Mostly these are companies related to the, for example, government, because you need to have a fixed price before you sign the contract.
Sadly.
The whole government thinks is not really agile. But that is why we're not dealing with this stuff.
It's just not working. It's just software development cannot be fixed in time, budget, and features. Things evolve. Clients change their mind about the features all the time, constantly, which is good, which means they're thinking, they're evaluating, and they're looking at what's at hand currently with software. And that's why you need to be, this is like an overused word, but you need to be agile. And being agile does not mean having a Scrum team with Scrum Master, team leads, QA, and so on. We don't have Scrum teams, but we're pretty agile. We use something like Kanban. We talked in the previous HackCast about this, about how we use Trello, but it's not exactly Kanban, it's not exactly Scrum, it's something that works for us and the teams. And in the company, we're like 15 people right now in HackSoft. We have 2 big teams, 1 small team right now. The 2 teams, they're doing agile the way it works for them, which I think is really important. And it all comes down to trust, I think, between the business and the software development company, between the software developers and the product owners, and the communication. So it's really important to have a good communication. It's really important for example, from the business side of things, to say, we're having a very crucial demo tomorrow. We're telling you now, and it's 7 in the evening already. So it's always good to tell those things in advance, to have a calendar with demos, so we can prepare, we can test, everything to go smoothly. And the same thing goes for the software developers to the business one. If something goes wrong or something does not seem right, you should communicate and say, this is perhaps going to take some more time. Let's rethink it, let's reevaluate it, and don't dig deep when there's no need for it. So I think it's all about trust, and if you trust your software developer, your software development company and team, you don't need the contract at all.
Well, companies have been using contracts. For example, we have contracts with our suppliers. Every company have contracts with all the suppliers. For example, supplying food, supplying things for the office, and most of the work that is not software development work can be estimated pretty easily, and almost all of the business is working on this fixed price thing. But it doesn't really apply for software. Because writing software is not easy and things are pretty dynamic. So it is normal for the business to require contracts and to require fixed prices. But a pretty big part of our work is to explain to them why this is not going to work, and propose a different way of working.
The agile way of working, which is let's start and see where we're going to go. And have trust, so the business won't think, those companies going to bill me like crazy every day without doing any actual job. So if there's trust, and this is what we really try to do with our clients, we try to establish trust, we try to establish loyalty, and try to prove that we can ship actual software and be a really good software development team. I think this is really important because this can unlock productivity and this can unlock speed and this can save actual budget. I just remember for one of our projects, we were working like fixed weeks. You're going. I'm doing 2 weeks now. 1 week later, it was like a really scrappy startup that didn't have a lot of budget, and they were like, "So we have budget for 3 more days for you to finish those features," and I finished them in 1 hour.
Yeah,
I was like, I will build it for 1 hour. So just so you know, I don't need the 3 days. And when we do things like this, we establish trust, and I think this is really important. This is why our model so far is working. People are enjoying the work they do. Clients are seeing progress, and it's hard to explain and it's hard to sell. And it's sometimes there are clients that they don't care. They just want a fixed price or they just want it now, and that's why you don't work with everyone.
Yeah. It is related, I think, with our company vision.
Yeah.
We want to get big in the long term. We want to get stable in the long term.
Yeah.
So, for example, this startup success means a lot more to us than, for example, the 2 extra days that we could build them.
Yep.
So it's way more important for us to put our logo in our to put their logo in our website, to say this is a successful startup that we helped, and they can refer us some other clients. And this is for the overall long vision of the company.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I think brings a lot of trust between us and our clients.
I think this is perhaps a good way to end the episode about efforts, estimates, and trust. And to say that in case there's someone who desperately needs a good software development team, they can always reach out to us. We are willing to talk. We're quite honest. We're going to say that if we can do it or if we cannot do it or if it's not worth doing it right now, and give her real feedback. And I think that's about it.
Yep.
It's pretty interesting.
Hope you enjoyed that episode.
Yep.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. Yeah, it's Friday night here in Sofia. It's already cold. Winter is coming, as always, as every year. It's going to surprise us as every year. And if you have if you actually have questions, something that you're interested about HackSoft or about us, feel free to drop those questions on the Facebook page or Twitter account or YouTube channel. I think that's it for now.
And how vloggers say, drop the questions in the comment section below.
Yeah, in the comment section below. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
And see you next time.